Welcome to Shadowproof. Evidence first, noise last.
In the woods of rural Maine, two hikers discovered a cabin door that had been sealed shut from the outside with industrial-grade steel chains. When they finally cut through the metal, the smell that escaped wasn't decay, but ozone and burnt hair, the scent of something unnatural. Inside, every surface was covered in a sticky, translucent residue that shimmered under their flashlight beams. On the table lay a single handwritten note, perfectly dry amidst the dampness. It read, "It learned our voices. Do not speak. It is still here." As the meaning of the words sank in, a low, wet scratching began inside the cabin's only closet. It wasn't the sound of nails on wood, but of something soft and heavy being dragged across the rough planks. And then, from the blackness within the closet, something whispered their names. For me, it was my brother's name. His real one. The one typed on a birth certificate I was never supposed to see. The air in the room grew thick and stale, smelling faintly of old paper and dust. My fingers went numb against the cold, brittle paper as I traced the letters. And that name, it wasn't Michael, it was David. That single word tore my entire family apart. The name hung in the air like ozone before a storm. Heavy, electric, and suffocating. I could feel the cold, damp paper against my fingertips as I stared at the defaced photograph. A primal dread took hold, and the only sound was the distant, rhythmic drip of water echoing through the empty house. This isn't just a story about a secret. It's about the person who lived it, and the life that was erased to keep it. The backstory. The air in that house grew heavy, thick with the scent of old paper and something metallic. Then came the whispers. Not from outside, but from the walls themselves. A low, sticky murmur that clung to the skin. The warm Texas air was thick with laughter as I chased my brother Mike across the sun-drenched backyard. The scent of cut grass and barbecue smoke hung in the humid evening. In that moment, he was everything to me. My protector, my partner in mischief. I didn't know then how that memory would become a ghost. At 6 years my senior, he was everything I wasn't. Effortlessly cool, brimming with confidence, my personal shield against the world. We were raised in a typical Austin suburb, within walls that smelled of baking and faint, lingering ozone from Dad's workshop. Our father, James, was a quiet engineer with kind, watchful eyes that seemed to hold unspoken calculations. Mom, Linda, was the unwavering heart of the home, her constant fussing and the scent of fresh bread weaving a fragile sense of normalcy. From the outside, we were the perfect portrait of normalcy. The Clark family, stable, happy. Yet beneath that polished surface, a faint scent of ozone and damp earth lingered in our home. We ignored the whispers that slithered through the floorboards at night, the sticky cold that clung to the air. Our normalcy was a fragile mask, already beginning to crack, or so I believed. Sarah, now in her late 20s, stood surrounded by boxes in her silent home office. Dust motes swirled in the stale air, carrying the scent of old paper and forgotten memories. Her fingers brushed against a damp cardboard seam, and the room seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere in the quiet, a faint scratching sound began, like nails on wood. When Dad passed last month, it was a heart attack. Sudden, brutal, no chance for goodbyes. Mom became a ghost of herself, hollowed out by grief, moving through the house like a whisper. Now, clearing out their attic, the air was thick with the scent of old paper and forgotten memories. Every object felt heavy with the weight of what was left unsaid. The weight of clearing 40 years of accumulated life fell to Mike and me. He took the cars, the finances, the tangible things. I was left with the memories and the attic. The cardboard flaps parted with a raspy sigh, stirring dust motes into the stale air. It sat behind tinsel and ornaments. Not a baby book or photo album, but a plain, legal envelope. The paper felt cool and slightly damp to the touch, carrying the scent of mildew and old ink. And inside, the foundational documents. Her fingers trembled over the documents. Their marriage license, their own birth certificates, and then ours. She withdrew the name, Sarah Marie Clark, first, her lips curling into a faint, wistful smile. Then, her fingers found another, Michael James Clark. She carefully unfolded the brittle paper. A wave of old, forgotten warmth washed over me, followed instantly by a profound, gnawing emptiness. The scent of aged paper and dust filled the air, carrying with it the ghost of a memory I could no longer grasp. The name on the birth certificate read, Michael James Clark. Parents listed as James and Linda Clark. My eyes scanned the document, following the familiar details until they froze. Then I saw it. A single detail so profoundly wrong, it made my mind seize. The document lay before him, its stark text illuminated by a single desk lamp. David Michael Clark. The first name crisp and formal, the middle nestled between them. A faint scent of aged paper and dust hung in the still air. His fingers traced the indentations of the typed letters, feeling the cold, smooth texture of the page. Somewhere distant, a floorboard groaned under an unseen weight. The silence that followed felt thick, oppressive. David. The name left his lips not as an identification, but as a quiet, grim acknowledgement. That was all he was now. Not Michael, David Michael Clark. I read it 10 times. The paper was real. The state seal was real. An official stamp of authority. But this felt fabricated. A fiction woven into my reality. Wasn't it? The question hung in the air, thick with the scent of old paper and something faintly metallic. I had called him Mike my entire life. Now, the name felt like a damp, ill-fitting skin. Sarah's fingers trembled against the aged paper as she read the name David, a stranger whose birth certificate lay in her hands, contradicting the man who called himself Mike. The attic air grew thick with the scent of decaying wood and old ink, pressing in on her as the truth began to unravel. Her breath hitched, a sharp, involuntary gasp, as she reached for her phone, the screen casting an eerie blue light across the document. With a sticky dread coating her throat, she pressed the call button, the silence broken only by the faint scratch of something moving in the attic's darkest corner. Her phone call went straight to voicemail. Sarah tried to sound casual, her voice tight with suppressed tension. "Hey Mike, weird question," she began, the words tasting like dust. "Going through Dad's stuff. Found our birth certificates. Everything seems normal with yours, right?" Mike's reply flashes on screen. "Yeah, why? All good. Busy with a client. Talk later." He didn't hesitate, not for a second. The reply was instant, casual, and that's what made the air in the room suddenly feel thick and metallic. His flat denial, devoid of curiosity, was the first fracture. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and damp earth. That's when I turned, the sticky dread already coiling in my gut. I went to find my mother. In her living room, Sarah presented the document to Linda, whose frail frame seemed to shrink further. Linda's eyes widened with a sudden, sharp intake of breath, then shuddered closed as if blocking out a painful memory. Her voice emerged thin and brittle, carrying the faint scent of old paper and dust. "Oh, that," she whispered, the words sticking in her throat. "That's just a clerical error. The hospital must have typed it wrong. We always called him Michael. We just never got around to fixing it." Narrator. "A clerical error on your firstborn's birth certificate. You just never got around to fixing it?" Her voice lacked substance, her gaze refusing to meet mine. It was a performance so unconvincing it felt like mockery. The lie hung between us, thick and clumsy. Then, her hands began moving earth. I combed through online archives and dusty photo albums, hunting for any trace of David. Every faded baby picture was neatly labeled Mike. Then, I found the gap in the records. A missing year, where the photos simply stopped. That's when the timeline fractured, and a cold, creeping dread began to coil in my stomach. My parents married in June 1985. Mike's, David's birth was February 1986. That's 8 months. Perfectly plausible. But in one picture, dated Christmas 1985, Mom was visibly, undeniably pregnant. Very pregnant, like 7 months along pregnant. A metallic scent, like old coins, filled the air as Sarah connected the dots. Her fingers grew cold and numb against the photograph's slick surface. The only sound was the frantic scratching of her pen across a notepad, each stroke etching the impossible truth deeper. A deep, hollow dread settled in her chest, heavier than the silence that now pressed in from the darkened room. A calculator with dates, a highlighted calendar.
Her face growing paler. If she was that pregnant at Christmas, the baby was due in late January, early February. Which fit. But the marriage had occurred only 6 months prior.
The timeline didn't add up. The numbers whispered of a rushed, desperate union. A shotgun wedding then. Fair enough. In the grand scheme of things, perhaps not the most shocking secret to be buried. But why fabricate a name? Why craft an entire new existence? Her thumb brushed over an entry, nearly scratched out, yet the ink bled through. The scent of old paper and dust filled her nose as she strained to see. There, beneath the frantic scratches, a single, stark letter remained. R. Then, in the back of my father's old Rolodex, I discovered a name that meant nothing to me. Henderson. Beside it was a Seattle number, its digits violently scratched out, though not completely erased. The air in the room grew thick and stale, smelling of old paper and something faintly metallic. My hands began to shake, a tremor of raw, inexplicable dread taking hold. I dialed Mike again, my fingers trembling against the cold plastic. When he answered, my voice emerged as a ragged whisper, thick with dread. "Mike, it's Sarah." The words tasted of ozone and iron on my tongue. "I know about the name. I know it says David, in faded ink, but I just found another name scratched beneath it. Henderson." The damp air suddenly carried a faint, coppery scent, like old pennies. Who the hell is Henderson? A floorboard groaned in the dark hallway behind me, the sound thick and deliberate. The line went dead, leaving only a hollow void in my ear. Then Mike's voice returned, stripped of warmth, each word sharp and metallic. "Put the document back, Sarah. Stop digging. For your own good. For Mom's." It wasn't a denial, it was a threat, heavy with the scent of old paper and cold dread. It was a stark warning, and in that instant, the brother I knew dissolved. He was replaced by this shuttered, terrified stranger who called himself David. A primal dread took hold as the air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and cold, damp decay. From the darkness, a faint, wet scratching sound began, rhythmic, and insistent. This was the climax. Sarah turned, her resolve hardening, and confronted her mother with a new, terrifying force. The mask of gentility shattered. Sarah's voice, sharp with betrayal, cut through the heavy air. "Mom, who is David? And who is R? Henderson in Seattle?" The final question hung, laced with a dread that thickened the room. Was Dad even his father? A wave of silent, primal horror washed over Linda, and she broke. Her tears weren't gentle, but violent, decades-held sobs that racked her frame. Through the raw grief, Linda's voice finally broke. His name was David. She paused, the air growing heavy with the weight of her next words. For 3 days, his father, his biological father, was a man named Robert Henderson. A final, shuddering breath. It was a fling. The air in the room grew thick and stale, heavy with the scent of old paper and secrets long buried. My mother's voice was a brittle whisper, confessing a summer fling before she met my father. "Robert wanted nothing to do with us," she said, the words hanging in the stagnant air. "He signed everything away." Then came the final, crushing blow. Mike, David, wasn't my full brother. The truth landed like a physical weight, pressing the oxygen from my lungs. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with the scent of old roses and something else, something faintly metallic, like iron. "I met your father just after.
He was kind. He loved me.
And he loved the baby. He intended to bestow upon him his own name, a clean slate, a rebirth, to become his father in every meaningful sense. So we altered it. We renamed him Michael, after your grandfather. We legally adopted him. The birth certificate you have, it's the amended one. After the adoption, we kept David as a middle name, a whisper, a piece of the truth we couldn't quite erase. Our house was built on a buried life, a foundation of secrets that made the very air feel heavy. A sudden wave of vertigo washed over me, the scent of damp earth and something metallic, like old iron, rising from the floorboards. Every awkward, unfunny, "You look just like Dad" joke echoed in my mind, their failure now feeling like a dark omen. And in that moment, I finally understood why Mike always felt like the odd one out in this place. He knew. He had to know. Sarah drove through the fog-drenched streets, the scent of damp earth and something metallic hanging in the air. Mike waited on his porch, aged far beyond the years since she'd last seen him. I found him there, the oppressive weight of his secret clinging to him like a second skin. The truth hung between us, a living thing. The air grew heavy with the scent of old paper and something metallic, like cold iron. His voice dropped to a whisper, raw and fractured. "Mike, David. Dad told me when I was 18, showed me the papers, the original ones. He insisted he was my father in every way but biologically, and that biology didn't matter. He pleaded with me not to tell you, warning it would shatter your image of our family, of Mom." Sarah's voice cut through the damp air. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Mike's voice fractured as he confessed. "Because I was terrified you'd see what I saw in the mirror for years, a complete stranger. The living proof of a secret that could unravel our family forever. I chose Mike Clark and buried David Henderson. For all of us." The confession hung in the air, thick with the scent of dust and decay. Only the distant drip of a faucet broke the heavy stillness that swallowed the room whole. The birth certificate lay between us on the cold table, a testament to the lie that wasn't born of malice, but of a father's misguided love. That single act of protection constructed an invisible barrier of glass, transparent yet impenetrable, separating me from my brother for 2 decades. While I remained in the warmth of our home, he existed in isolation on the opposite side of that manufactured silence, alone with the truth. The architect of this chilling divide was the man I cherished most, my father, whose love built this prison of quiet between us. My mother, the keeper of the first secret. And my brother, he paid the price. We're trying to rebuild now, Mike and I. He told me I could call him whatever I wanted. Some days, I call him Mike. Others, when we're alone, I call him David. A quiet acknowledgement of the boy they erased. A faint scent of ozone, like the air after a storm, always lingers when I use that name. The temperature drops, and the silence thickens. Sometimes, I hear a soft whisper, just beyond the edge of hearing, when I speak it aloud. It feels like a sticky residue on the skin, refusing to wash away. That name is a key to a door I can't close. And whatever waits on the other side is always listening. The man who carried that ghost. But it leaves me with a question that haunts me, and one I want to leave with you. What is a name? Is it a gift, or is it a disguise? How many people do we adore for a name, for a story, while the person beneath silently screams to be seen? Look at your family. Look closely. What's hidden in plain sight? The air grows heavy with the scent of aged paper and something metallic, like old pennies. A paper folds with a whisper of finality. The most terrifying crimes aren't murders. They're the assassinations of truth. And the crime scene is your own home.
If the proof convinced you, subscribe and open the next case.